March 27, 2026, 2:14 a.m. A concealed compound south of Tokmak, Zaporizhzhia Oblast, 3 Russian generals, 1 operations room, 40 minutes until impact. None of them knew the clock had already started. This wasn't a random strike. This wasn't luck. This was the product of weeks of signals intelligence, pattern analysis, and one critical mistake by Russian communications officers who believed their encrypted channels were secure. They weren't. I'm your host at Warfish TV, where we analyze the battles that change wars. And today, we're breaking down one of the most devastating decapitation strikes of the entire conflict. A single HIMARS salvo that silenced an entire Russian army axis for nearly 9 hours, destroyed a forward command post, and eliminated senior leadership from the 58th Combined Arms Army. Real tactics, real consequences. Warfish TV. Let's start with the strategic picture. By late March 2026, the Zaporizhzhia front had settled into a grinding pattern. Neither side had achieved a major breakthrough since the previous autumn. Russian forces along the southern axis were rotating depleted units in and out of forward positions, trying to maintain defensive lines that stretched from Polohi in the east to Orikhiv in the northwest. The 58th Combined Arms Army, headquartered out of Vladikavkaz but operating forward elements deep inside occupied Zaporizhzhia Oblast, bore responsibility for a significant section of this line. The 58th had taken severe losses throughout 2025. Multiple brigades were operating at 60% strength or less. Replacement troops arriving from training grounds in Rostov Oblast were poorly prepared, many with fewer than 4 weeks of actual combat training. Equipment shortages forced commanders to consolidate armor from multiple battalions into ad hoc formations. This created a command problem. When units are fragmented and reorganized repeatedly, coordination breaks down. Officers from different brigades don't know each other's communication protocols. Fire support requests get lost. Rotation schedules overlap. To address this, 3 senior officers from the 58th decided to hold a face-to-face coordination meeting at a forward command post approximately 18 kilometers south of Tokmak. This was their first mistake. The compound they selected had been used intermittently as a logistics hub since mid-2024. It consisted of 4 reinforced concrete buildings surrounded by an earthen berm, with camouflage netting draped over the main structure. 2 hardened communications shelters sat on the eastern side, housing radio relay equipment and encrypted satellite terminals. A motor pool to the south contained several armored vehicles, including at least 2 BTR-82As, serving as command transports, a signals van, and ammunition stored in a partially buried bunker 20 meters from the main building. Russian forces had positioned 2 electronic warfare systems within 3 kilometers of the compound. 1 Pol-21 jamming unit and 1 older Krasuka-2 system were tasked with disrupting GPS-guided munitions in the area. On paper, this was adequate protection. On paper. Ukrainian signals intelligence had been monitoring Russian communications along the Zaporizhzhia axis continuously since October 2025. A dedicated electronic intelligence unit operating from a concealed position northwest of Orikhiv was scanning frequencies associated with the 58th Combined Arms Army's command network. On March 25th, 2 days before the strike, Ukrainian analysts detected an anomaly. Encrypted traffic on a frequency associated with the 58th senior staff increased by 300% over a 12-hour period. Messages were being relayed between at least 4 nodes, suggesting coordination between division-level headquarters and a forward position. The content was encrypted, but the pattern wasn't. Signals intelligence doesn't always require breaking codes. Sometimes the metadata tells you everything. The volume of traffic, the timing of transmissions, the geographic clustering of signal origins. Ukrainian analysts mapped the transmission nodes and identified a convergence point south of Tokmak. Which weapon played the decisive role in this strike? Was it A, the HIMARS rockets themselves? B, the signals intelligence that found the target? Or C, the reconnaissance drones that confirmed it? Drop your answer in the comments. By March 26th, Ukrainian intelligence had narrowed the probable location to a 2-kilometer radius. But probable wasn't enough. A HIMARS strike package is expensive. The rockets are limited in supply, and targeting a decoy or empty position would waste critical assets while revealing Ukrainian launch positions to Russian counter-battery radar. They needed visual confirmation. At 6:40 p.m. on March 26th, a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone launched from a position north of Orekhiv. The drone, a modified Leleka 100, flew a circuitous route to avoid known Russian air defense positions, approaching the target area from the southeast to disguise its origin point. Operating at an altitude that kept it below the effective detection range of nearby Russian Panzer systems, the drone reached the target area at approximately 7:15 p.m. What the operators saw confirmed everything the signals analysts had predicted. The compound was active. Thermal imaging showed vehicle engines running. At least 7 vehicles were present, including the 2 BTR-82As and what appeared to be a mobile command post variant of a HIMARS truck. Personnel were moving between buildings. Communications antennas were extended and active. Most importantly, the drone operators identified a security perimeter that was significantly expanded from previous observations of the site. Additional sentries, vehicle checkpoints, and what appeared to be a Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft gun positioned on the northern berm. Enhanced security meant high-value personnel were present. The drone loitered for 43 minutes, recording continuous footage. Operators counted at least 30 personnel visible at various points. The pattern of movement suggested a command meeting was either in progress or imminent. Officers entering the main building, aides carrying document cases. Communications personnel running cable between the signals shelter and the main structure. At 8:02 p.m., the drone was recalled to avoid detection as Russian patrols shifted patterns. The intelligence package was compiled and transmitted up the chain of command within 90 minutes. By 10 p.m. on March 26th, Ukrainian Artillery Command had received authorization to plan the strike. Stay with me. What happens in the next 4 hours ends the careers of 3 Russian generals and creates the longest command blackout on the Zaporizhzhia axis since 2023. The HIMARS battery assigned to the mission was positioned approximately 60 kilometers north of the target. The M142 HIMARS launcher is a 6-wheeled vehicle carrying a single pod of 6 GMLRS rockets. Each M31A1 unitary rocket weighs approximately 300 pounds, carries a 200-pound high-explosive warhead fitted with a proximity or point detonation fuse, and is guided by GPS with an inertial navigation backup. The system's circular error probable is less than 2 meters. At 60 kilometers, flight time is approximately 70 seconds. The battery commander received the fire mission at 11:30 p.m. Target coordinates had been refined using the drone reconnaissance footage, cross-referenced with satellite imagery, and signals intelligence triangulation data. The target was the main building of the compound, specifically the eastern wing, where communications activity was concentrated. But the mission planning wasn't simple. 2 factors complicated the strike. First, the Russian electronic warfare systems. The Pol-21 jammer was designed specifically to disrupt GPS signals in a localized area, potentially degrading the accuracy of GMLRS rockets during their terminal guidance phase. Ukrainian electronic warfare specialists analyzed the jammer's probable operating parameters and determined that its effective radius was approximately 4 kilometers centered on its deployment position, which was 2.8 kilometers northeast of the target compound. The solution was technical. GMLRS rockets equipped with newer guidance packages include anti-jam features that can maintain lock on GPS signals even in contested electromagnetic environments. The battery confirmed that its current rocket loadout included the updated guidance modules. Additionally, the inertial navigation backup would maintain accuracy even if GPS was briefly disrupted, provided the rockets acquired strong GPS lock before entering the jammed zone. Second factor, timing. The strike needed to occur while the senior officers were still at the compound. Intelligence suggested the meeting would conclude by early morning, with the generals departing before dawn to avoid daylight movement. The window was closing. At 1:45 a.m. on March 27th, the HIMARS crew completed final targeting calculations. The launcher was already positioned in a pre-surveyed firing point, engine running, pod elevated and oriented toward the target bearing. The crew had rehearsed the shoot and scoot sequence. Fire the full pod, relocate within 90 seconds, disappear before Russian counter-battery radar can compute a firing solution. At 2:14 a.m., the battery commander gave the order. 6 rockets left the launcher in rapid sequence, each departing the pod with a roar that echoed across the dark Ukrainian countryside. The M142's hydraulic systems absorbed the recoil as rocket after rocket ignited and arced into the night sky, climbing rapidly before the guidance systems kicked in and bent their trajectories toward a single set of coordinates 60 kilometers to the south. The launcher was moving before the last rocket cleared the pod. Driver flooring the accelerator, the six-wheeled vehicle lurched off the firing point and onto a pre-planned escape route, headlights off, navigating by GPS toward a secondary concealment position 4 kilometers away. 70 seconds, that's all it takes. The first rocket struck the eastern wing of the main building at 2:15 a.m. The 200-pound warhead detonated on impact, punching through the roof and exploding inside what Ukrainian intelligence had identified as the primary operations room. The blast wave radiated outward, shattering concrete walls and collapsing the ceiling structure. The second rocket hit 3 seconds later, impacting 8 meters west of the first strike. This round caught the corridor connecting the eastern wing to the central structure, where personnel fleeing the first explosion were caught in the open. Rockets 3 and 4 struck the communications shelters on the compound's eastern perimeter. The hardened shelters, designed to protect radio equipment from shrapnel, were not built to withstand direct hits from precision-guided munitions. Both shelters were destroyed, along with the encrypted satellite terminals and radio relay equipment inside. Rocket 5 impacted near the motor pool, detonating among the parked vehicles. The blast ignited fuel in at least one BTR-82A, creating a secondary fire that spread to ammunition stored in the vehicle's hull. The burning armored vehicle cooked off its 30mm cannon rounds for the next 20 minutes, sending tracer rounds arcing randomly across the compound. The sixth rocket struck the partially buried ammunition bunker 20 meters south of the main building. The bunker contained artillery shells, small arms ammunition, and reportedly several crates of anti-tank mines awaiting distribution to forward positions. The resulting secondary explosion was massive. Ukrainian drone operators monitoring the strike from a safe distance reported a fireball that rose over 100 meters, visible from their position kilometers away. Subscribe to Warfist TV if you want to understand how modern warfare actually works. This channel breaks down the strikes, the weapons, and the tactical decisions that define the front lines. The entire engagement, from the first impact to the last secondary explosion, lasted less than 4 minutes. But the effects cascaded for hours. Russian communications on the Zaporizhzhia axis went silent at 2:15 a.m. Not reduced, not degraded, silent. The destruction of the compound's communications equipment severed a critical relay node in the 58th Combined Arms Army's command network. Forward units south of Tokmak lost contact with their divisional headquarters. Artillery batteries couldn't receive fire missions. Reconnaissance units couldn't report enemy movements. Medical evacuation requests went unanswered. For nearly 9 hours, from 2:15 a.m. until approximately 11 a.m., the entire southern sector of the Zaporizhzhia front operated without centralized command and control. Battalion commanders were forced to make independent decisions based on standing orders and local situational awareness. Some units reportedly pulled back from exposed positions without authorization, fearing they were next. This was the longest command blackout recorded on the Zaporizhzhia axis since the fall of 2023, when a similar communications disruption had occurred during a Ukrainian counteroffensive push. Now, let's talk about what the Russian electronic warfare systems were supposed to prevent. The Pol-21 jammer positioned northeast of the compound was designed to create a GPS denial bubble around high-value assets. In theory, GMLRS rockets entering this bubble would lose satellite guidance lock and revert to inertial navigation only, degrading their accuracy from a 2-meter CEP to potentially 30 meters or more. It didn't work. Post-strike analysis suggests 2 possible explanations. First, the updated GMLRS guidance packages may have incorporated anti-jam capabilities that the Pol-21 couldn't overcome. The electronic warfare between GPS-guided munitions and GPS jammers is an ongoing technological arms race, and in this case, the munitions won. Second, the rocket's approach trajectory may have kept them outside the jammer's effective cone for long enough to maintain GPS lock through the terminal phase, with the inertial backup providing sufficient accuracy for the final seconds of flight. Either way, 5 of 6 rockets struck within 15 meters of their intended aim points. The 6th, which hit the ammunition bunker, may have been targeted separately, or may have been a slight deviation that produced an even more devastating result than planned. If you believe tactics win wars, type Warfist TV in the comments, because this strike proves that intelligence, precision, and timing can achieve what entire brigades cannot. 48 hours after the strike, Ukrainian forces released drone reconnaissance footage of the compound. The imagery was devastating. The main building was unrecognizable. The eastern wing had collapsed entirely, with the roof pancaked onto the ground floor. The central structure was gutted by fire, with only exterior walls partially standing. Debris from the communications shelters was scattered across a 50-meter radius. The motor pool was a graveyard of burned-out vehicles, the BTR-82, as reduced to blackened hulls with their tires melted to the ground. The ammunition bunker had cratered, leaving a hole approximately 8 meters across and 4 meters deep. Destroyed communications equipment, antenna masts, cable spools, and fragments of electronic hardware were visible throughout the site. At least 4 vehicles beyond the BTR-82As were destroyed, including the HIMARS mobile command post and what appeared to be a logistics truck laden with supplies. Ukrainian military intelligence assessed that approximately 30 to 35 Russian personnel were present at the compound at the time of the strike. Casualty estimates ranged from 25 to 30 casualties, including the 3 senior officers whose presence had triggered the entire operation. Russian milblogger channels, normally quick to dismiss Ukrainian strike claims, confirmed the loss of senior staff officers within 72 hours. Several prominent channels posted obituaries for colonels and a major general attached to the 58th Combined Arms Army, though they attributed the deaths to various causes, rather than acknowledging a single catastrophic strike. Moscow's official response was characteristically vague. The Russian Ministry of Defense acknowledged that a logistics facility in the Zaporizhzhia region had been struck, resulting in limited material damage. No mention of casualties, no mention of command disruption, no mention of generals. But the 9-hour communications blackout told the real story. What would NATO have done differently in this scenario? Would a different approach to electronic warfare have saved the command post? Drop your analysis in the comments. Let's examine why this strike succeeded so completely, because the Russian failures here were systemic, not incidental. Failure 1. Communications security. The 58th Combined Arms Army's encrypted communications network was technically secure in terms of content encryption. Ukrainian analysts could not read the messages, but the Russians failed to implement basic signals discipline, the surge in traffic volume, the geographic pattern of transmissions, and the timing of communications created a clear signature that pointed directly to the command meeting. Modern signals intelligence doesn't need to break your code if your transmission patterns tell the story. Failure 2. Location selection. Holding a meeting of 3 general officers at a compound only 18 kilometers from the front line was an extraordinary risk. Standard military doctrine across virtually every modern army recommends that senior command meetings occur well behind the forward edge of battle area, ideally beyond the range of enemy precision fires. 60 kilometers from the HIMARS battery, the compound was well within the GMLRS rocket's 300-kilometer range. The officers chose proximity to their units over personal security. It was a fatal miscalculation. Failure 3. Electronic warfare deployment. The Pol 21 and Krasuka 2 systems were positioned to create a protective bubble, but they were either inadequately calibrated, technologically outmatched by the updated GMLRS guidance packages, or incorrectly positioned relative to the most likely attack vectors. Electronic warfare is only effective when it accounts for the enemy's specific capabilities and approach angles. There is no evidence that the Russian EW operators had updated their systems to counter the latest GMLRS anti-jam features. Failure 4. Air defense gaps. The compound had no dedicated short-range air defense system capable of intercepting incoming rockets. A ZU-23-2 anti-aircraft gun is designed to engage low-flying aircraft and helicopters, not GPS, guided rockets descending at high velocity on a near-vertical terminal trajectory. A Panzer S-1 or Tor M2 system might have intercepted one or more of the incoming rockets. Neither was present. Failure 5. Dispersion. 3 generals in one building. This violates the most basic principle of force protection for senior leadership. If Russian command had dispersed this meeting across multiple locations, or conducted it via secure video link, a single strike could not have achieved a decapitation effect. The concentration of leadership was a gift to Ukrainian targeters. Now, consider the Ukrainian side. Every element of this operation demonstrated the maturation of Ukraine's precision strike capability. Intelligence fusion, signals intelligence, drone reconnaissance, satellite imagery, and pattern analysis were combined into a single targeting package within 48 hours of the initial detection. This kind of multi-source intelligence fusion was once the exclusive domain of major NATO powers. Ukraine has developed this capability through a combination of Western training, technology transfers, and hard-won combat experience. Speed of decision. From the drone confirmation at 8:02 p.m. on March 26th to the strike at 2:14 a.m. on March 27th, fewer than 6 hours elapsed. In that window, Ukrainian forces compiled the intelligence, obtained strike authorization, planned the fire mission, positioned the launcher, and executed. This decision cycle is faster than most Russian units can complete a routine fire mission request. Precision execution. 5 of 6 rockets hit within 15 meters of their intended targets at a range of 60 kilometers, against a time-sensitive target. At night, through an electronic warfare environment, this level of precision under combat conditions is exceptional. Shoot and scoot discipline. The HIMARS battery relocated within 90 seconds of firing, denying Russian counter-battery radar any opportunity to compute a return fire solution. The launcher was never detected or engaged. Ukraine doesn't just use weapons. Ukraine invents new ways to fight. And in this case, the innovation wasn't a new gadget or a wonder weapon. It was the seamless integration of intelligence, decision-making, and precision fires into a kill chain that operated faster than the enemy could react. Real tactics, real consequences. Warfist TV. The strategic implications of this strike extended well beyond the immediate casualties. The 9-hour command blackout disrupted planned Russian operations along the entire southern Zaporizhzhia axis. A scheduled rotation of depleted units was delayed by 5 days as replacement commands were established and new communications links were built. Artillery fire from Russian positions decreased measurably in the 48 hours following the strike as batteries lost contact with forward observers and fire direction centers. Ukrainian forces exploited the confusion. On the morning of March 27th, while Russian units were still struggling to re-establish communications, Ukrainian infantry conducted probing attacks along 2 sections of the line south of Arikiev, gathering intelligence on Russian positions that had been static for weeks. The attacks were limited in scope, but the information gained proved valuable for subsequent operations. More broadly, the strike reinforced a pattern that has defined the Zaporizhzhia front since late 2024. Russian command nodes are vulnerable. Every time senior officers gather, every time a headquarters remains in one location for too long, every time communications discipline slips, Ukrainian intelligence is watching and HIMARS is within range. This creates a persistent psychological pressure on Russian command staff. Officers become reluctant to visit forward positions. Meetings are shortened or canceled. Communications are restricted, which paradoxically degrades coordination further. The fear of precision strikes forces Russian commanders into a dilemma: centralize control and risk decapitation, or decentralize and risk the chaos of uncoordinated operations. Neither option is good. That's the point. Now, the answer to our earlier question: which weapon played the decisive role? The answer is B, the signals intelligence that found the target. The HIMARS rockets were the delivery mechanism, and the reconnaissance drone provided confirmation. But without the signals intelligence analysts who detected the communications anomaly and triangulated the compound's location, there would have been no target to strike. The most precise rocket in the world is useless without knowing where to aim it. Intelligence is the force multiplier that transforms a weapon system into a strategic tool. 3 questions to consider. First was the decision to hold a face-to-face meeting 18 kilometers from the front line, a defensible choice given the coordination problems the 58th Combined Arms Army was facing, or was it pure negligence? Second, could improved Russian electronic warfare, specifically newer generation GPS jammers, have prevented this strike, or has the GMLRS guidance technology permanently outpaced current jamming capabilities? Third, if you were commanding the Ukrainian strike cell, Would you have waited for additional confirmation before committing the HIMARS battery? Or was the 48-hour intelligence window sufficient? Subscribe to Warfist TV because we break down the battles that textbooks will study for decades. The compound south of Tokmak is quiet now. Rubble, where a building stood. Burned hulls, where armored vehicles idled. A crater where ammunition once waited for distribution. And somewhere in the wreckage, the shattered remains of communications equipment that was supposed to coordinate an army. 3 generals came to plan a rotation. They never left. The Zaporizhzhia steppe remembers. The scorch marks on concrete, the twisted metal, the silence that lasted 9 hours. Modern warfare punishes tactical mistakes without mercy. And on the night of March 27, 2026, every mistake the Russian 58th Combined Arms Army made was punished in full. Stay vigilant.